Hey everyone, I'm pkagebein at the Garland County Library in Hot Springs, Arkansas, since we may have people watching from outside of Arkansas. And tonight I'm here once again with one of my favorite guests, Sonny Kay, who's the executive director of our local nonprofit, Low Key Arts. And he's not just the guest tonight, he's back again to be the host. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a moment, and he's going to interview his friend, Harding Thornton, who is debuting with a brand new release, her first novel, Pickard County Atlas. So, Sonny, I'm not going to steal your thunder too much tonight, but also I'll let you handle most of the introduction for Chris and her book. But I want to point out that the book got a highlight in the mystery and suspense section of Library Journal. You can see that. And you can also place it on hold and check it out at the library starting now. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Will. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So one last thing from me, anyone watching live, if you have any questions or comments for them while you're watching, just be sure to post them and I'll hop back in when Sonny's interview's over. I'll be listening for the cue and then I'll read them off to these two. All right, so show is all yours.
Awesome, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Paul, and welcome, Chris. I'm so used to calling you Christina from many years back, but welcome. Very what a wonderful day to be able to speak to you. The publication day of your first novel. A remarkable accomplishment, and huge congratulations to you for that first and foremost. The book is Pickard County Atlas. I happen to have a copy of it sitting right here, and what an incredible way to start 2021 for you. It must be a little bit surreal, I would think.
It is completely surreal, yeah. There was a thing in the New York Times that it was like noted in the New York Times. It wasn't a review, but just seeing it there in the New York Times was and my brain melted. I don't know. But yeah, it's great.
You feel like that legitimizes it somehow, I guess?
Yeah, it's like that moment when in The Jerk when he finds his name in the phone book, you know? Like I'm a person.
Fantastic. Well, I've noticed as you've been sharing on your social media, the early critical response to this book has been very encouraging. And it seems as though you may have a runaway success on your hands before too long.
We'll hope.
Would, but before we get into the meat and potatoes of the book, so to speak, I'd love to talk to you about how you got where you are now and how, of course, how we know one another. But I'd love to start way back before that, if you don't mind, and just sort of paint a little picture of I suppose your formal background, if there is one. Or, I mean, I know you from the world of underground music, of course, and never a dull moment around here. Cool. But of course, you've there's been a lot of water under the so-called bridge, I guess you could say, since you and I worked together, and you've done and accomplished all kinds of things that I have very little knowledge of. So I'd love to eventually start talking about that. But let's start with the absolute basics here. You are 7th generation Nebraskan.
Yeah.
And you're speaking to us tonight from Nebraska, of course, from Omaha.
I'm actually in Wahoo, Nebraska, which is 30 minutes from Omaha and 30 minutes from Lincoln.
Okay.
Wahoo, yeah, Wahoo, Nebraska.
Okay.
I'm from just outside of Omaha originally. I grew up in a town that's kind of been built over, but it's still an unincorporated community called Irvington. I grew up right outside of there until I was 7, and then I moved to right outside of Bennington, Nebraska, which has also now been built up to by Omaha, but then was just a small town. Yeah, we lived like a mile and a half away from town proper. And then I moved back to Omaha when I was like 14 and went to high school there. Then went to college a couple times. Didn't work out. Went as an opera major, then that lasted a quarter. Moved to Lawrence, Kansas because it had great shows, and that's all I really cared about.
And you were how old at that point?
I moved down there when I was. Oh, I moved down. Well, gosh, that's a really hard question. 19, 18 or 19.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I was there for several years, moved back up to Omaha and worked at Drastic Plastic. And that is when I met you, which would have been 97?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah.
I think,
that's around the time we were coming through town a lot. And yeah, sure. 96 or 97, I would have.
Having 96 or 97, because I saw the VSS play at Cog Factory, and that might have been 96 or 7. Yeah, and yeah.
And at this point, you were pretty entrenched in the culture of music in Omaha, right? You worked at Drastic Plastic, which was a sort of foundational independent record store there.
Yeah, that and Antiquarium were the two. Yeah.
Did you work at the Antiquarium as well?
No, I was just really close friends with everybody at the Antiquarium. It was yeah. I bought records there. They came over and bought records from Drastic. It was nice.
I mean, yeah. I haven't been to Omaha in quite a while, but I imagine it's developed and evolved in many ways, like most big cities have, that I can't even imagine. But I feel confident in saying that in the mid '90s, those two shops and the Cog Factory, the venue, and maybe one or two bars. I can't remember what that. There was the big bar downtown that had shows.
There was the Howard Street
place. There was a place Angel Hair played once with Mousetrap or something, I believe.
Oh.
Anyway, that's beside.
The lift ticket. That's in Benson, though. Oh my gosh, there was an FOE hall downtown.
I feel like it had a generic name, and I don't remember what it was.
There was the Swing for a little while, which was in the back of a Ace Rent-A-Center.
Wow, really?
It was really weird. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody will know. I'll ask. Somebody will know.
And so you were involved first as in sort of retail and stuff, but you were putting on shows in Omaha as well. Is that right?
Yeah. I worked the door a lot at Cog Factory, and then I got into booking shows at Cog Factory. And
the Cog Factory, for anyone who doesn't know, is Paul.
The viewers are saying Capitol.
Oh, the duh.
Yeah, Capitol Theater, of course. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Trey and Lalea. Duh.
Theater. I should have known that. Easy to confuse with the Capitol Theater in Olympia, Washington, too, I imagine. But so the Cog Factory, for anybody who doesn't know, is was a collective, all ages space along the lines of a Gilman Street or ABC No Rio kind of a thing.
Yeah. Very much like Gilman Street, really, inside. Except the bathrooms were grosser, I think. Yeah, no, the bathrooms were definitely grosser at Cog Factory than Gilman. Yeah, and so then I worked at Drastic. I met you ordering records.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved out to California, and because you offered me a job, and I just felt like taking on.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. I was actually I was racking my brains trying to think of the actual what led to what back then. But
yeah, it was 99, and I asked you offhand if you knew of anybody who would be hiring, because I just kind of wanted to move for a while.
Right.
And you offered, and yeah, I jumped on it, and then I moved in with Julie in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
Julie's lovely. She's so funny.
And how long were you in the Bay Area? About a year and a half or so?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I moved in December of 99, and then I was there for I think 6 months, and then moved down to LA for about 6 months, and then moved back up to. I've counted my addresses, and I just look like a drifter on paper. But I moved back up to the Bay Area, and I moved back then again to Omaha in 2001, April, I think of. No. April of 2002, because I was there. I was in the Bay Area when September 11th happened. That's my
Okay.
things.
Now, were you writing all of this time? Have you always been a writer?
I had always been writing. It wasn't until 97 that I really kind of started taking it seriously, in a way. And then, I started taking classes at UNO, but then I moved again to California. And then when I moved back from California, I went to UNO, and they had one of the very few Bachelor of Fine Arts programs in creative writing.
Okay.
So I did that. I finished my degree there, and then and I also worked for Saddle Creek at the same time, Saddle Creek Records.
Right. Who are an institution, I think, in Omaha now, right? I mean, they have been for a long time, and have really, in the world of the kind of music that we come from, certainly put Omaha on the map, I think you could say, in a big way.
Oh yeah, it blew it up kind of. All of a sudden there were a lot of venues. There's a lot of venues in Omaha.
Are there still?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Then I decided to go to grad school. I decided to get an MFA, so I moved to Seattle for 2 years. Got an MFA, and while I was there, what you needed to do to have a job in teaching changed. Like it used to be that you could just get an MFA and then you could get a teaching job. By the time I graduated, you needed a teaching job in a full book, in print, preferably. And I did not have that. I just had a bunch of.
You needed to have published a book. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a tough market. So I just panicked, and I went back to Nebraska and went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln to get a Ph.D. And so I did that.
And that was in writing as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's technically the degrees in English, but it's I had an emphasis in writing. So, and I did creative nonfiction for that, but I was writing a novel the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
This novel, Pickard County Atlas, is your first published novel, but it sounds as though you've had some trial runs. You've written some unpublished books. I take it.
Yeah. Well, my dissertation, it was like, I wrote it about, I walked a Cowboy Trail, the section of what's called the Cowboy Trail in Nebraska. It's like about 203 miles, maybe.
Oh, can you explain that? What's that about?
My family, it's 7th generation Nebraskan. On one end, like, of course, there's a bunch of different, limbs on the family tree.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them were tenant farmers and sharecroppers, so they would move yearly. I pretty much to back and forth, which is maybe that's why I moved so much. But they moved back and forth from eastern Nebraska to western Nebraska to eastern Nebraska to western Nebraska, just over and over again. And the Cowboy Trail goes through one of the towns that my family's connected to.
Okay.
So just kind of on a whim, I decided to walk from Norfolk, Nebraska to Valentine, Nebraska into the Sandhills with a friend of mine, Jackie Sturba, who is hilarious. And she took photos, and my stepdad actually came with us, Greg, and he would make sure that we were alive at the end of each day, which was really nice. And yeah, I mean, it was a really, really fun trip, and I wrote my dissertation about it. Unfortunately, like, it's a dissertation, so like it reads like walking in real time for 200 miles. So yeah, but it helped. I mean, I had to research agriculture and trains and the history of Nebraska's small towns, and I got to meet a lot of people. Amazing people in the small towns that we walked through. So I think I had to do that for sure to just be able to write this book. You know, it was like I needed to write that book in order to be able to write this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This book seems what you're saying already in this, what you've just said, sort of touches upon where my thoughts were going with regards to this book. And getting into talking about it. There is a attention to detail, first of all, that is quite remarkable in this, and a sort of a tactile sense of really being in Nebraska. I think this book discusses the environment of Nebraska in a way that's I don't think it's a stretch to say that you're romanticizing it a little bit, but it's also it feels very earnest and very personal and very almost like a sense of pride in it for the sort of gritty, almost kind of stubborn. I'm not doing the best job of elucidating my thought here. I really feel,
I never do. That's why I write.
I pick up the book and I read a chapter and I feel like it's it's so easy to imagine being there, and it's so visual, and it's so it lends itself. I mean, it feels cinematic, but yet you're talking about the kinds of dirt weeds on the side of the road, and you're talking about things to do with the way the roads are paved, and wildflowers, and these kind of things, these sort of textural elements that really paint such a lush picture. The story is kind of a crime noir type of thing. I know I'm definitely simplifying it by putting it putting it in that nutshell, but I feel like you're coming from such a place of a tangible, like it's clear that you like Nebraska. You are of Nebraska, and I guess that's ultimately what I'm trying to say. There's a richness to the awareness of the surroundings that I feel could only come from somebody who really means it, who isn't just passing through and picking up fodder for a book, I suppose is what I'm saying. It feels like a personal thing of yours in a deep way.
Yeah, I think the landscapes in Nebraska like you internalize them after a while. A lot of people don't know much about Nebraska, which is understandable. But the largest sand sea in the Western Hemisphere is in Nebraska. So like it's a pretty. What's that?
Largest what?
Largest sand sea.
That's a thing, a sand sea?
Yeah, it's an area of sand dunes that are it's the largest of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. There's much larger in the Eastern Hemisphere, but it hasn't been there that long. Like it's kind of a puzzle and a mystery of how it even came to be. They think it's only been there 400 to 1,000 years, which means that like somewhere like the prevailing theory right now anyway, for a long time it's been different, and who knows with science, but it changes all the time. But they think that the sand was picked up from another area and just deposited in this mass.
Wow. By wind or something, or by supernatural forces?
by wind. Yeah. I mean, but who knows? I mean, but it depends on how you define supernatural, right? So possible.
Well, I've never heard that expression before. Sandsea. How interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and I think that there's this writer that no one has heard of anymore called Wright Morris, who was a Nebraska writer, and he actually won 2 National Book Awards, and he was a really big deal at the time. And in a couple of different books, his narrators describe it as the plains anyway, which isn't really the sand hills, but he describes it as a metaphysical landscape, and it feels like it. It feels like a metaphysical landscape. Like it is. It's something that's just sort of like it's in your bones, kind of. I don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting. I just completely lost my train of thought, and I'm like, pardon me. I have read some of the press, what's come out so far about the book a little bit, and I was curious to see. I think it was in the review by the Minneapolis newspaper.
Oh yeah, Star Tribune.
They mention your book in the context of a larger, what they call a movement towards something called rural noir, which is not an expression I have heard yet. Admittedly, I'm not that up on literature, as probably imagine you and probably many people watching this are. But I do know that in the world of music, generally people who are labeled with things like that tend to wriggle a little bit under the weight of that, and maybe not feel, no one likes to be pigeonholed, of course, but then again, right. You got to sell books. So what's your take on rural noir?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like every author is like, you read about Camus being like, when people would call him an existentialist or whatever, and he's like, no, don't do that to me. And I think every writer is kind of probably pretty prone to that. A lot of writers, not every writer, a lot of writers are prone to that. I didn't intentionally write a rural noir. I know that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good descriptive. I think it fits in that category in some ways. I mean, I think, one of the main characters is a sheriff's deputy. So that kind of like, I think lends itself to that noir thing. And it does have a lot of dark elements in it, which that's what noir means. It's dark, right? But, first off, the rural thing, like nobody, there's a little trouble with that. Like nobody says like, of like Don DeLillo or somebody like, oh, the very city centric writer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I would hope people would just think that this is a book about people. And as far as the noir thing, I'm backing off of the noir thing, but,
yeah, I think
Harley Jensen is not, he's not a hard-boiled person. I think he's a damaged person. I think he's had trauma in his life. I think that he's reluctant about his job. There's just only so many jobs to be had in a town that small,
Yeah.
So, I think it's a little more layered than that. That said, if people read it and they feel like it's a noir, like that's a matter of interpretation. And I always want to leave that open, of course, like I want people to like, I think that books are something that we collectively experience and then we take away completely different meanings from it and completely different themes from it. All the reviews have been, it's fun to read them because it feels like a book club where I'm like, oh, you focus on that character. I think the main character is this other character that nobody has talked about yet. But so, I mean, I'm not, I don't think I'm a noir writer necessarily. I think, if I wrote one, it wasn't on purpose, but if that's what trips people's trigger, that's fine. I do think the word thriller has been used a little too loosely.
Mhm.
Like, I think it's more of a psychological suspense than it is a thriller. It takes a long time to build a thriller. You expect to like open up and it's just going to go, and it's just going to take off. In this book, I mean, there's a lot of building. And then when it does careen out of control for the last 75 pages or 100 pages, maybe, I don't know, it gets pretty out of control. When it does do that, it goes pretty quick. But, know what to expect. Tana French, I believe, called it slow burning. And it is. It's a slow burn,
Certainly. I love that descriptor. I mean, that's I suppose that's the opposite. That's the opposite of a thriller, but still suspenseful, certainly. And
not it's not thrilling. It's thrilling.
It's thrilling. Yeah, I think the rural aspect of it is a little bit feels not entirely incidental. I mean, it's set in a rural setting, but it's
absolutely.
It doesn't. The rural nature of it doesn't really affect the story per se, right? At least I wouldn't think so. I mean, okay, these guys are working on trailers, but outside. I mean, there's trailers everywhere, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, and everybody's gonna think the book is about me now, but it's not. I'm not Anna. I'm not Pam. But
that was my next question. How much of you is in this character?
That I'm in every character.
Okay.
I mean, the book started with Pam. The book took a really long time to write because I never had time to write it. I was always working other jobs and I was always taking classes and teaching and working part-time and everything else. So I first just heard this chattering, angry person in my head in 2008. And that ended up being chapter 11 of the book. But
so you thought of that chapter before the rest of the book?
Yeah. The rest of the book ended up coming. It just came whenever I had time for it and whenever it just decided to show up to the party. So it only took like probably an hour and a half. Yeah, I wish it took probably a year and a half, 2 years cumulatively to write the book. But that was because I could only work on it a week here, a week there, maybe a month over a summer when I wasn't planning classes or working another job or whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely, I think that a person can only write from what they know, really. I think that they can only write from how they've seen the world. And so I think every character is like a chunk of me, usually doing something terrible to another chunk of me, which is weird, but
what an interesting way of thinking about it.
What's that?
What an interesting way of thinking about it. That's funny. I mean,
yeah,
it's curious.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know why we do it, but yeah, it's it's fun. I don't know. And you're always working something out subconsciously that you don't know that you even needed to work out,
Are all of your locations in the book non-fictional, or are there any that are made up?
They're all made up.
They're all made up.
They're all made up. Yeah, I pulled a Faulkner with that one. I made up Pickard County. Madson's made up Wanahee, Junco, and oh my gosh, I can't even think of the other town anyway. But it's been a while since I read it. But yeah, no, they're all made up.
How interesting! I was certain that they weren't. I felt this was. I should have just got out Google and looked. But how remarkable! I was.
I like that you thought they were real. I mean, yeah.
What what do you see happening next with this book? Now today is the first week in January. The book is published today. Is there a sort of a press junket that you're doing to promote it, or what happens now?
We can't do much right now,
Right. Sure.
I can't do reading, like public readings or anything like that. So it's been, social media has been huge and hugely helpful. I've had people who are really sweet, who are really kind, who have reached out to me already and have said that they really like it. People at bookstores and things like that who read advanced copies of it. And so I think it's just going to have to, slowly build some steam or whatever. And, maybe I'll get made into a movie, and that'll be nice. That would be fun to see how someone would make this into a movie. I really like, I'm one of those people that I really like seeing how other people adapt what I do or how other people interpret what I do. It's like the reviews. Everybody says, never read your reviews. And I couldn't help it. I was just curious. I was like, how's it? Not like, do they like it or do they hate it? Because I know some people are going to like it. Some people are going to hate it. And some people are going to think it's really funny, in parts at least. I think it is. And some people are going to be like, that's horribly depressing. And I get that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now. Sorry.
Can I ask you about the significance of and if you don't want to divulge anything with this, I understand, but I was puzzled for a while reading the book, trying to figure out when it was taking place. And there were a few little clues here and there, and certainly the conspicuous lack of modern technology and jargon and stuff. But there's sort of a little giveaway with a thing about Richard Pryor appearance on the Tonight Show, which places the square in the late 70s. And I guess I was just curious what made you make that decision.
Yeah, I went with 78. That's, I think psychologists say you're not supposed to remember before a certain age, and I do. I just do. I'm one of those weirdos who happens to remember some things that happened when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
And actually earlier, but that's complicated. But no, so I chose 78 in part because I kind of remember 78. As unlikely as that sounds. It was also right about the time that people refer to the 1980s farm crisis as the 80s farm crisis, but really 78, I think, was like right on the cusp of that. And I think there's so much change going on in that little span of time. Like musically, you had a lot going on, and you had a lot of cultural shifting going on. There was a lot of backlash going on from cultural stuff that had happened, mid 70s and earlier in the 70s.
Right.
It just felt like we were on at the edge of a cliff in 78. The gas thing, the shortages happened in 79. Inflation was out of control. Right. At the same time, like that 70s is when we had like, a Dog Day Afternoon and Electric Company in my case, like things like that. Like it was just, it seemed like, and Norman Lear was huge. All his TV shows were huge. It seemed like we had a moment in time when we had like open and frank discussions about things. And then there was a backlash and we elected Reagan, And I don't blame people for making a shift there. There was a lot going on where like people were hurting like financially, and I think people vote with their pocketbooks, honestly, most of the time, a lot of the time. Not everybody, but so I get that. But yeah, it seemed like it was a different world from the 80s. I don't know, I guess that's it.
Interesting.
I also have to mess with cell phones. you know, like there was no like DNA, you know, and so it was easier to like if you were gonna write like a novel about, you know, where this isn't a plot spoiler, you find out about it in the first chapter, but when you have like a missing child for, you know, 18 years, like that's a little less likely to happen now
Right.
than it would have been then.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yet, certainly many factors in the book that are just as relevant now too. For example, pharmaceutical abuse, arguably at an epidemic proportion now compared to the place. But well, okay. So what's next for you now that this has been accomplished? And I imagine it must be an enormous sense of accomplishment and relief, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird feeling. I felt like I won the lottery. Like I've read that your chance of cold querying agents and then getting put out by a house like Farrar Strasseru, which I mean, you know, MCD is a portion of Farrar Strasseru.
Okay.
That felt like winning the lottery. Like your chances are, I don't want to discourage anyone, but your chances of having that happen are actually lower statistically than going straight from high school to the NBA. So like it just felt really improbable.
Mm-hmm.
And surreal. But I've had a long time to kind of live with that already. So I am ready to kind of move on. I'm ready to work on some other things. I had originally planned on writing a prequel to this book.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to hold off on that. I'm probably going to come back to it. The next book is set more in the early 1900s, and it's in Omaha, which was maybe one of the most terrifying places to live in the early 1900s and late 1800s.
Because of the meat industry?
The corruption. Oh. It was really something else. Like, and it was a place where you didn't want to step off the train, really. Like, you wanted to just keep going to your destination.
Really? Wow. Okay. I guess having lived in Denver and all the people, the sort of Wild West element there, sort of being, I think people take credit for it regionally.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that Omaha had that. Well, I mean, of course, it's in the West. Why wouldn't it be? But how interesting! I was not aware of that reputation.
Yeah, their Wild West lasted well into the. I would argue some of it's a little Wild West now, but I mean, it definitely lasted. Like for a while, it was like Chicago, but I think Omaha was scary. I just think that like what I've read about the political corruption and, you know, the county coroner was a private mortician. He benefited from having as many bodies on hand as possible.
Okay.
So it was a weird time. Yeah. And I had family that was involved in some, like I had an uncle, my grandmother's uncle, actually, grandma's great uncle, who was a private detective, and also sometimes a cop, and also sometimes a prohibition agent, and always running for office and like derailing other people's campaigns. And he got arrested a bunch of times for false imprisonment of, you know, and like witness tampering and things like that. And then my other uncle was troubled, and his younger brother, and killed some people. So that's probably where the next book
Okay, wow. We have a rich source of inspiration there, I guess.
Almost too much. Like I'm gonna have to like pull it. I'm gonna have to tame it down and pull it back a little bit and kind of like choose. Okay, which scandals get involved?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully nobody in my family is watching this, but I think they all know that I'm gonna write it. So, and it's gonna be fictionalized. I didn't know them. I just know what was in the newspapers.
Sure.
So
Sure. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Are you going to be? Are you? That's sorry. That's maybe that's a little bit of a. Maybe we should dial it back. Maybe we should say 5 years. You are teaching, and am I right? You were a professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
yeah,
Okay.
Lincoln. Actually, I'm down in Lincoln. I am a lecturer. So a lecturer is not quite a professor. So I'm teaching, but it's a year-to-year contract, and I love doing it. I like being there. I like the people that take the classes a lot. So it's fun. But I don't know how sustainable that's going to be, again, because of everything that's going on in the world. So I don't know. I mean, I might get more into editing. I think I'm going to take some time to write just exclusively for a little bit. I've never been able to do that before, so I think I'm going to try to do that in the next year.
Great.
Yeah. At 60, if I make it to 60, I already decided that I'm going to start smoking again and get knuckle tattoos.
So you quit smoking. Congratulations.
Yeah, I quit in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ones that you see like on Twitter or whatever, I'm faking it. I'm not.
Oh, really? You're using stunt cigarettes.
I just needed something to be doing, like with my hands, so that was the natural thing. But
I remember you, I picture you at the warehouse that we had in Oakland, and I picture you outside on the sidewalk having a smoke, as a matter of fact.
yes.
You're wrong with that. That's my, little cue in my brain for that time.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like part of my identity, honestly. That's also why I did it for the pictures. I still feel like a smoker. I still wish I smoked every day, but it's been 7 years or whatever, so I'm not gonna back. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, I think I'm not sure. I can't tell from where I'm from the view I have if we have questions or viewers, but. Paul, if you are handy, and if there are any for Chris.
Yeah, there sure are. Good job, you two. You're probably going to get us hit with one of those Real Truth smoking ads.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we have a few viewer comments and questions. You might have already addressed some of these here and there, but you may want to clarify or expand on one of these answers. So first of all, Sarah says she's excited to read it, and I know publishers can summarize things in their own way. So how would you describe the story to someone who's about to dive in? How would you describe it, not your publisher?
That's the hardest question ever. Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's like a sales pitch that's on the spot.
Well, there are three main characters. There's Harley, the sheriff's deputy, and there is Pam Reddick, who is a young 20s woman who is married and has a 3-year-old child, and she's really tired of it. She's tired of being poor primarily, but and then there's Rick Reddick, her husband, whose oldest brother died 18 years before, was killed actually by a farmhand 18 years before the book opens. And then the book is set up so that you follow Harley, then Pam, then Rick over and over. It goes like, just like someone described it as a roulette, and it kind of is. and each person, what drives the story kind of is each person doesn't know what the other people know. I think that's a big component of what drives the story. Before the book opens, Rick's father has a headstone planted for his son, even though they never found the body. And that kind of sets all of these things in motion. And Rick has a younger brother who has a tendency to get in trouble with the law a lot. And I don't want to give away too much, but he does a lot to drive the story. I will say that. Does that sound okay?
Builds the anticipation.
I think that's very, yeah.
It's hard because I don't want to give plot spoilers.
Sure.
Basically, okay, I can say this. There's this series. Somebody steals. There's an old man who passes away also prior to the beginning of the book, and someone ends up stealing his clothes and then burning them in an abandoned house. And there are a lot of abandoned houses in rural Nebraska. And then that kind of, it happens more than once. There's a pattern.
Question from Miranda. What was your inspiration for the story?
Oh, I think probably my inspiration for the story, I mean, like I said earlier, is that I just like kind of heard that voice, which makes me sound, but either pretentious or not right. But the impetus was that I heard that voice of Pam's, like, just going off about motherhood and the stresses of being a wife and mother, and everything in the trailer that they live in is constantly falling apart. And I think a lot of it probably came from, I've had to tell my mother like 800 times, like, she read it and she's like, you like your dad better than me. And I'm like, you are not. Like, you're not in the book. None of you are in the book. Only I'm in the book, in all these different characters, like indirectly, So I think that was largely what drove it. And then I got really obsessive about plot, because that's not something we talked about in school. Like in workshops, you have to work with short stories usually because of the time constraints. So I had to really kind of, in a way, teach myself plot. And I learned a lot from films and from like some great TV shows, modern TV shows. We've had some really good ones, I think, in the past few years. So I really got addicted to like making those little cogs of the teeth of cogs turn. You know what I mean? Like making sure that like nothing is in there that doesn't have some kind of repercussions, like an old man calls about his newspaper that ends up having repercussions like later in the book. So that was probably what really made it go.
Got a comment from Russell who says it's going to be adapted to a film, a thriller film. Congratulations, Chris. You're going to make $1 million.
I love you, Russ. I love you.
Me too.
And also, I guess this was when Sonny asked where you see yourself in 5 years, and Russell said Magic City.
I hope so.
I
love that.
What's Magic City?
I mean, I guess LA.
Oh, okay. I thought that was some Nebraska local thing that we don't know about.
I mean, I love Nebraska, but come on, LA's got weather. I mean, the weather, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at snow. Like, well, I'm not. Right now it's just darkness, but like outside it's just snow.
Yeah, there's got to be a few actual magic cities across America. I mean, there's a Toadsuck, Arkansas, so
yeah,
there's at least 3 magic cities.
Wherever Russ is living, that's where I want to be.
That's where I want to be.
Taco Mike says, I can't wait to read that next book. Is your other work available anywhere, as in poetry or any other earlier work?
Mike, hi. Mike is from everybody. If you want to buy the book, there, Mike's got a great, he works at a really great bookstore up in Marquette, Michigan. I always get my up north places confused, but it's called Snowbound Books. Snowbound Books. So order from them. Anyway, yeah, if you go to my website, you can read a couple of poems. I'm not a poet. I don't pretend to be a poet. I wrote a couple, and they're out there. There's one in the Baltimore Review, which is a great place, and the Tampa Review, which they're amazing. They send out these, like, they're hardbacks. They do hardback journals. It's amazing. And then I have a collection of short stories through, if you go to Bandcamp, actually, on Bandcamp, there's a record label called Doomtown USA that has the coolest part are the covers that they made. They're these hand screen printed covers. It's called Delayed Juvenilia, and it's short stuff that I did a long time ago. And I think that's it.
Russell followed up, love you both, and apparently Magic City is what they used to call Omaha.
Oh, they did. I get it. I don't know. Maybe I'll be back in Omaha in 5 years. I don't know. I probably will be. I always go back to Omaha at some point. That place.
I need a visit. I'm overdue for a visit. Certainly.
They did call it Magic City. How dumb. Like, I read all this history. Like,
is this book going to be an audiobook with a serial podcast voice?
It is an audiobook. An actor named James Foey, who is really talented, did the audiobook, but I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But yeah, it is. It's available through all the usual suspects.
That's out today as well?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't get it until today. So I just, like, it's been a whirlwind. Yeah.
Caitlin asked, excuse me, growing up in small town Nebraska, did you always have a sense of the darker side of the Midwestern rural landscape, or is that something that you came to notice more as you got older?
Yeah, no. If there's an autobiographical bit in the piece, in the book, well, there's a couple of kind of autobiographical bits, but if there's one thing that definitely happened, my grandmother and I lived with my grandparents, like I said, from 7 to 14, and my grandma and I would be driving, because we always had to drive to go to get anywhere, and every time we'd pass a house or like a field or whatever, she'd be like, that's where so-and-so blew her head off. And then, like, over here, the next house would be like, I just remember, oh, this is horrible. That a woman, I think my grandma put it in a way that she was trying to make me feel guilty or something. I think she was like, there was this old woman who lived there. She knew her name, and her kids never came to visit, and nobody visited her for a long time. And finally, the mail person, like, checked on her, and apparently she had expired and fallen behind a chair, and because it was really hot, she'd blown up. Her body apparently do that. Yeah. So, and she was just a walking encyclopedia of really morbid tales. So yeah, that part's true. Let's
see, Caitlin says, I love Delayed Juvenilia. Everybody go find Doomtown and get yourself a copy.
Thank you, Caitlin. Oh, love you too. Oh my goodness.
Janice asks, what is your favorite book? What do you like reading?
Favorite book? I can't. I mean, I seriously, I can't. I'm going to look to my left. And now I'm going to look over here. I have piles of books that I'm not allowing you to see. Okay, at the top is Othello, and then I see Invisible Man peeking out of there, and Catch-22. Invisible Man, and then also Ralph Ellison's essays, like his collected essays. I could read those over and over and over again. I think my my favorite authors look like probably a high school person's like nightmare reading list, and also or like first year undergraduate. Like I think it looks like a nightmare of oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to read that. James Welch's Winter in the Blood is another huge favorite of mine. I can't. Wright Morris's The Home Place. Nobody gets it. It's so good. But it's incredible and it's experimental. It's his photography interspersed with a story, but not necessarily like in a literal way. And it just like builds and builds and builds throughout the story. And it's freaking beautiful. It's just beautiful.
I know a lot of probably the viewers, well, of course the viewers and just our patrons in general love true crime and fictional crime. Do you have any other suggestions, be it books, podcasts, TV shows, movies?
Yeah, there's a really great book if you're interested in Omaha. I'm a little obsessive about it because I think that a lot of the information came from somebody who was not particularly, he wasn't very trustworthy, but the book itself is interesting if you like history. It's called River City Empire. That's something that I enjoy, and there's definitely some crime in there. I mean, I'm old school, so like In Cold Blood, of course, is going to be way up there. But, I loved Serial. I shouldn't have listened to it like while walking around a rural lake, but I did. Like at night, horrified and terrified myself. What did I just watch? I just watched that Errol Morris. The thing, it's not Errol Morris didn't make it, but it's kind of about Errol Morris's obsession with a murder. Has anybody seen that? I just watched that. I also really love Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. And I think the adaptation of that was it just blew me away. I thought that it was incredible. The book's good. The adaptation's amazing. You have to watch through the end credits of the last episode or you won't get it. I'm just going to tell you that.
All right.
Thank you, Taco Mike, who says, this has been incredible. Thank you for engaging.
Thank you, Taco Mike.
And your name is incredible, Taco Mike. Miranda says, great conversation and congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, Miranda.
All right. I guess we're going to start wrapping up, and I'll give everyone a chance to say their final words. What I have, something that viewers or a lot of Sonny's low-key followers might appreciate. Next week, I have an interview here with the muralist Pepe Gaka. Nice. If you have any questions, get those in advance or live, and I'll be happy to read them off in our conversation. That's Thursday, January 14th at 6 p.m. And Sonny, I'll let you say goodbye first. You did a great job, and we'll follow up with an email for whatever our next event's going to be here. Tell everyone about Low Key.
Yeah.
Low Key Arts has just had a wonderful start to 2021. We had a really successful Arkansas Shorts drive-in this past Saturday night. We have a bunch of exciting things on the horizon this year. We're drastically expanding our filmmaking program. And depending on what happens with COVID and live events, we will be making our return to that in just a few months, universe willing. And in the meantime, I just encourage everybody to stay up with our activities. That's our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/lowkeyarts, or of course our website, lowkeyarts.org. And there's always something going on, I'll tell you that. And Chris, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm so happy for you, and I want to congratulate you once more for the publication today of your debut novel. You've come a long way since you were taking orders for me and boxing CDs to go to wherever they were going. And it's remarkable to see your career do the things it's done. And I'm very excited to see what's next for you, and truly quite fascinated to see what kind of legs Pickard County Atlas grows, because the book is wonderful. It's very cinematic, and I know you've already had some people sniffing around in that department, and I hope they keep sniffing. And soon you're, like J.K. Rowling or something, just banging them out. Sequel.
I don't know all that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Garland County Library too. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. Since Sonny brought this up, I'll read off this one final viewer question that kind of relates to the book being cinematic. Janice asked, who do you visualize playing your book characters in a movie?
Oh, I have done that. I mean, I think Harley, I think Josh Brolin would be a good Harley at this point. I think that for Pam, since I can't have like Laura Dern from when she was of a certain age, I would say Margot Robbie would be incredible. Rick, it's funny because when I wrote Rick, I had a picture of Josh Brolin from No Country for Old Men in my head when I was writing him. But gosh, that's a fascinating question. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to change Harley to if anybody watched, I can't think of his name right now. If anybody watched the Perry Mason series, which was really good on HBO, the guy who plays the sidekick PI, he would be perfect then for Harley. And then I'd choose Josh Brolin from No Country to be Rick. And yeah, that's as far as I've gotten with casting. And I love the Coen brothers. I think the Coen brothers could do a really nice job, but I'll take anybody. I mean, I love everybody. I love all of you. So whoever wants.
It feels very Coen brothers to me, actually. I didn't necessarily want to paint it into that corner, but yeah, it's definitely got that vibe.
Yeah, I think David Lynch is in there a little bit too, like Fire Walk with Me in particular, I think, which nobody likes, but it's the best film he made. Just saying it. There's my hot take.
All right, Chris, well, congratulations. I'm going to let you sign us off here in just a second. But just a reminder, the book got a recommendation from Library Journal. And I mean, I don't know how many thousands of books we get a year, but not all of them appear in there. So that's some good praise. I saw you, like Sonny mentioned earlier, getting some good critic recognition. So I'll let you, other than, people in Hot Springs, we have a couple copies at the library, but I'll let you tell them where they can buy your book directly. And if there's any other final words you'd like to say, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, I think bookshop.org is a really great place. You can choose to just buy it straight through them, and they take 10% and they donate it to independent bookstores. You can choose the bookstore that you want to, if it's listed, the local bookstore that's there, and they'll get the full profit, which is 30%, I think. Or let's see, Amazon, of course, has it. Yeah. Target has it. Walmart has it. That's weird. But Powell's has it. Powell's up in Portland is great. It seems to be getting really nice distribution. I haven't seen if Strand has it. That's kind of on my wish list. I'm hoping they do, but we'll see. I don't know if they do in New York. And I know that they need the support right now, but everybody needs the support right now. And I think that if you can buy it from a indie, try to do that. And if it's not convenient, obviously just buy it. I don't care. Buy multiple copies, But yeah, I just want to thank everybody so much. This has been the best way to end a really, really just surreal day. This is the best way to. I'm so glad this happened today.
Great.
I needed this. So thank you.
That's awesome.
And Sonny, it's so great to see you. It's so great to see you.
You too. It's really nice to catch up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. Let's do this again when the next one comes out, or the movie.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Well, absolutely. Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching. Everyone, be safe and have a good 2021.
You too.
Good night.
Bye.